Throughout my time in this mortal realm, I thought I would never get into Terraria and actually enjoy it. Every attempt at a playthrough would result in me quitting from either rage or confusion, and eventually I had to accept that maybe Terraria isn't for me.
A few weeks ago, it became one of the greatest video games I've ever played.
What?
But how did we get here, chat? Let's talk about it. At the beginning of 2026, me and my good pal Arthur were looking for a co-op game to play. We'd pretty much exhausted every co-op game we could think of, so finding something new was a struggle. Now, for context, Arthur has been a huge Terraria fan for many years, but although he'd often brought it up to me, I never had any interest in actually taking that plunge. But in this moment of pure desperation, push came to shove and I finally installed it. Now, I have played Terraria many times over the years, but I'm using played loosely because I never even reached the first boss fight. Early game Terraria is a slog. I still stand by that even after beating the game twice. It doesn't try to sell you on it whatsoever because the movement and mining are insanely slow. It's a while before you get any cool weapons, and your health is so low that you'll get inappropriately touched by your enemies constantly unless you know what you're doing. The early game was always the obstacle I failed to get past in previous attempts, and if it weren't for Arthur's wisdom guiding me this time around, I can guarantee you I would not be making this video right now. This problem cannot be fixed with minor tweaks and such. There is a core gameplay rework that needs to happen. Terraria has the potential to be a lot of people's favorite game, but it's currently very uninviting to newcomers. The moment where it felt like everything started to open up was once we started fighting the bosses. I'm the type of person who always needs a goal or something to build towards, and Terraria's bosses are exactly that. They gave me a reason to optimize my class, and the rewards after each fight would set me up for whatever came next. Terraria is about a lot more than just fighting bosses, but that's what resonated with me most. I struggle to get into a lot of open-ended games nowadays, so having something to work towards was exactly what I needed to keep playing. And man, a lot of these bosses were so fun to fight. Queen Bee, Deerclops, Skeletron. These bosses are a lot more varied than I initially expected them to be. I won't lie, Arthur was carrying heavy for most of the run. I was just the sacrificial lamb tanking hits, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. But there's one moment I can point to when Terraria finally clicked. The Wall of Flesh is the boss you have to defeat to enter hard mode, so naturally this fight felt bigger than anything before. I already knew of the boss, but I wasn't aware just how much preparation was required before we could fight it, and that made me anticipate the fight so much more. We'd built some small arenas to fight bosses in up to this point, but building a huge platform across hell felt like this would be a lot bigger and grander. That fight was so fun, man. It definitely took us a few tries, but this is one of the few games I've ever played where I never felt mad at losing to a boss, because everything is just so polished that it never felt like my deaths were bullshit, just rather that I wasn't good enough, which is fair. Post Wall of Flesh also unlocks a ton of new shit through hard mode, which just made that fight feel more impactful and cemented it as one of the most memorable fights in base game. But before we move on from vanilla Terraria, I would just like to talk about an inner change I had throughout my time playing it. So, I hate wiki games. If you don't know what that is, it's the type of game where you spend more time googling shit than actually playing the game. Terraria is a wiki game, especially for a first-time player. Let's not get that twisted. I do think that if your game needs a wiki to make sense, it's failed at easing new players in. But to be fair, at some point after Wall of Flesh, I actually felt like I understood all the core mechanics, and the wiki stopped being a thing I used to teach me what the game was about, and more of a planner for what I wanted to do next. Kind of like a menu of possibilities. I don't want to glorify wiki games, but in Terraria's case, you do eventually reach a point where it's not fully necessary, it's just nice to have. Overall, the progression feels good. I loved exploring and collecting statues, and constantly upgrading my gear. It's just a great gameplay loop. For my first time, I did a magic run, and when I finally got the Razorblade Typhoon, I was addicted to the combat. It's honestly so crazy how much it picks up after the early game. Post Moonlord, I could easily call it a top 15 game of all time, but it still felt like its potential hadn't been fully realized yet, and that's where Calamity comes in. It took us about 2 to 3 weeks of regular playing to get through vanilla, so at this point I was starting to feel a little burnt out, I can't lie. However, Arthur wasn't done with this game yet, so he put us onto Calamity, the biggest Terraria mod out there. He'd played a little bit of it before, but he wasn't an expert in it like he was with base game, so this was going to be a mainly fresh experience for the both of us. We made our new characters and started up the run. I thought that maybe after beating vanilla that the early game would be easier and more bearable to get through, but yet again it was a slog. Having to redo that starting stage nearly pushed me to quitting. Plus, we played on Revengeance difficulty, as that's the intended Calamity experience, so you can imagine how annoying that is when you've got equipment. Revengeance overall though was an amazing experience. It took boss fights from a thing where you were able to tank hits to having to learn enemy movesets inside and out. On top of that, we got access to all the new mechanics like rage, adrenaline, and dodging, which just made an already good feeling game great. I personally went from dying constantly to having to actually get good so I wouldn't hold us back from progressing. And post Calamity, I definitely feel like I know what I'm doing now. The content that Calamity adds surprised me with how high quality it is. The weapons are varied and flashy, the bosses are cinematic, the soundtrack, oh, the soundtrack. I loved when some of the later boss fight themes suddenly got vocals, like some dude just started screaming his lungs out on the mic. That shit made me feel like I was in an anime. I also love how Calamity builds on top of vanilla rather than replacing it entirely. You still need a lot of base game items to craft Calamity's weapons, so there were several points in the endgame where we'd want to make something new and realize that we needed some random early game material that we never picked up, so we'd have to go on these scavenger hunts to find them. Calamity never makes the original game feel obsolete. It more so feels like it could be an official DLC, it's just that naturally integrated. But there's one moment I need to tell you about which pushed Terraria from the top 15 spot of all time way higher up. The Devourer of Gods. It starts off pretty light, you know? I've not had much issues at all with the worm type bosses, so I wasn't expecting this to take long, honestly. And then the Devourer starts talking? This is new, and he's talking in a very arrogant and self-assured way, which put the fear of God in me. Pun fully intended. Also, can we talk about how hard that name goes? That's gotta be one of the coolest titles for a fictional character ever. I love this cosmic horror type theme that Calamity has going for it. I eat that shit up. As I'm starting to get a hang of his attacks, the music gets quieter, and the Devourer seemingly disappears. Is the fight over? I've not seen anything like this happen before.
It's not over yet, kid.
Oh, shit, okay.
This guy pops back out at a faster speed than any enemy I've fought up to this point. The music ramps up and the background changes. This looks fucking sick. His attacks are now making these roaringly loud impact sounds as if they're literally breaking through the sound barrier.
A god does not fear death.
What the fuck?
Everything just keeps ramping up. I'm sweating at this point. We make that final push and the Devourer of Gods is no more. What a fight. This was the moment that I realized Calamity is one of the best things I've ever played, full stop. Going from King Slime to this, it's just a mindfuck. That feeling of growing more powerful by the hour, of going from dying to zombies to killing a literal eater of gods.
What?
This one fight solidified Terraria as a potential top 5 game of all time for me, and I just cannot get enough of it at this point. Me and Arthur have started our 3rd playthrough now. We're doing an ultra modded run. We're gonna do Wrath of the Gods, we're doing the Stars Above, Fargo's, and the game just keeps getting better the more we play. I honestly think I'll be replaying this multiple times a year, and I expect it to become my most played game of all time eventually. It's just that good. If you want to see some follow-up videos, some more Terraria content from me, do let me know in the comments, and consider subscribing if you want to be notified of that when that happens. I'm gonna clock out now. See ya.